So this is the latest thrift store haul from the Salvation Army this time. Um, it was $25 in Canadian, mind you, which is a little high, but it's got the remote control. It's got both speakers. It seems to be complete. I plugged it in. The radio seemed to be tuning. Obviously, I couldn't test the sound. I'm at least getting a no disc and what seems to be a seek on the CD player. So what I've got is this Kenwood MS5 compact CD system. I've been using this for a few months, shoved into a bookcase, which is why it's dusty on the top here. The amplifier works perfectly, the tuner works perfectly, the CD player works briefly and then skips, and the cassette tape deck doesn't work. The belts are probably bad. I can't remember if I can hear the motor on it or not. I have the remote control for this. I've got the speakers. This is in very nice shape. My likelihood of fixing the CD player, I think is relatively low. Although what I notice is that the little knob that hooks the door closed is loose, and I wonder if there isn't some issue with that. And there also, I know now, I know this is probably not visible on camera, but there's some scratches around here, like someone pried the CD door open. A series of scratches, which you would get if you took a screwdriver. Although I don't see anything on the edge here, so that might just be someone sliding the disc in. Yeah, that's just sliding the disc in to clip them on here. This little seems okay. I did try cleaning the lens. That didn't seem to do anything, never seems to. So I don't know. I will try to tighten that up. That looks like it just, like the spring might be loose. And you know, clean up. Maybe there's a lot of dust on the little worm gear that drives the lens back and forth. That could be what's causing the problem. I have a higher, again, I can't really see what you can see up there, but as you can see, a lot of dust has built up in the cassette mechanism. This is a pretty good quality cassette mechanism, all metal, auto reverse. It's got Dolby. It records from the tuner or CD, I guess from the outside input as well, but since there's no meter, you're really likely to use it from the internal sources. Its real purpose is for dubbing CDs for your car in the era, which you might also have bought from Kenwood. It's a pretty nice little thing. 10 watts a channel. The speakers are pretty decent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. I'll pause the recording here, open this up, have a look inside, and see if I can just replace the belts for that and clean it out and see whether there's anything I can do about the CD player. So I will do that, and then I will bring you back in to have a look. Well, let me show you how far I've gotten with this. Just look at the framing here. That's all right. Okay, so I have removed the CD player. This is the CD player. It has an audio cable. Again, I'm kind of turning up here to see what my framing. So there's the audio connection, and there's the data connection. That's got two wires. So this one is keyed and makes its way off into, presumably, to the amplifier board, and this one goes to the control board, which is right up here. That's not keyed, but it pretty obviously only goes on one way. What I need to get is at the cassette mechanism in here. To do that, I'm going to have to remove the front panel, and I'm hoping I don't have to undo everything there to do it. But I've removed screws here, 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 and on the bottom, and I've taken off the volume knob. You can see here the motor to drive the volume, and that should come off. So that looks like it's on its little own board. This might be This has got to be the tuner in this can. Yeah, that's got to be the tuner, and possibly the rest of the tuner mechanism here. All the capacitors look fine. I'm not touching anything. This is the volume. There's a cable that goes down from the stepper motor to into the bells, and I assume that in the back here somewhere is going to be the power amplifier board, which might be the same as with the tape recorder board. I'm just going to see it. I see something that says deck. I think this might be the tape recorder. There are a couple of chips there. The tape recorder might be on this board as well, which would make a certain amount of sense. But I would like to not have to take all this stuff apart to get at the belts, and I'm hoping that I can do it if I get this front panel off. I haven't quite figured out how to do that, and I'm being a little leery of it. Yeah, this is probably the display collector. It's probably underneath there somewhere. And there's again, it's going to be hard for you to see, but there's a chip here which has got to be the display controller. And, and there's also got to be a DSP chip on here somewhere, although I kind of assumed it would be in the tape. Okay, after the removal of a large number of screws, we can start to see the bottom of this chassis. I kind of don't want to unplug everything, but may have to. It does look like stuff has its own plug, so it should be okay. So you can see there's the motor, and there's the cassette mechanism right here. This is probably the analog connection. Yes, it is from the cassette mechanism, so I'm right that the cassette electronics are up here. It does not look like the belts are terribly easy to access, but it does look like they might be a size I own. So I think I'm going to start unplugging stuff. I'm going to put, I think, different colored dots on each of the cables and plugs in an attempt to try to keep things intact. So as you can see, this unplugs here. We'll just put a colored dot on that to try to keep everything under control, because I think I need this faceplate out, if not entirely, then mostly, to keep everything under control. There's some fun stuff. There's some shielding here. And so it'll be fun to have a look at this, but this is a fairly complex teardown. I've been able to get enough plugs out. One is which is a big one of this sort, is just escaping me as to how it's supposed to release, so I'm not going to touch it. We have a date for this, by the way, so September of 92, the 18th of September 92, of course, when the cassette mechanism was made. It looks like I've got to remove this back panel entirely to get at the belts. It looks like there are two, and as you can see, at least one of them is, I'm not going to poke at it because it's totally, it's turning into goo. I will say, then apart from the feet, everything on this, until we get into the chassis here, inside, maybe release this little spring, has used one of two kinds of screws. One for going into plastic and one for going into sheet metal, or sorry, machine screws sorts of deal. It's really nice. It makes life much easier. Okay. So this is the door release mechanism right here. That goes in there. I'm glad I'm recording this so that I can see how it works afterward. Let's leave that down there so where it goes is more obvious. So what we've got, all right, so we need to remove this as well here. The motor has a fairly short cable on it as well, but there's a little bit of extra length as there is for this one. So I think I can pull this out and lift it over, and then we should be able to look at the mechanism. Let me just remove this one here. I'm not aware of anyone who makes a belt kit for this, so I think then we'll put some appropriate belts on it, and let's hope we haven't mucked up anything along the way. So I will get right to that. So for cleaning this, there's nothing fancy, just isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips. Let's use this spray bottle. Is very convenient for cleaning flux off of circuit boards. I think it's sold for so that you can cool someone down who has a severe fever. Well, you see, all we're going to do is clean this out as best we can. These appear to be fine. As you can see, there's really just this one spot that's bad. And, you know, I don't have any proper picks, but you can use that to scrape them off. So you see, just try to loosen it up as best you can. You don't want to scratch up these little pulleys too much. You know, it's just going to have a belt around it. So you use that, and you use whatever tools you have to scrape it off, and just sort of keep poking at it until it's all done. So that's what I'm going to do, and then we'll put the belts on and I'll bring you back. A few of these later, and I've cleaned this up as best I can. Now the question is going to be to remember how the belts went, which is always a bit of an issue, but fortunately I have my video from before to refer to. So I'm going to refer to that and see if I can find some belts to put on here. Okay, that definitely rates as an extremely fiddly task, but I think I've got the belts in place, that is. I'm not sure they're the perfect length, and I'm not entirely sure I've got them on the right way, but the routing does seem to make sense. I've got 0.7 millimeter belts on there, and I think the original ones were 1 millimeter. Although it's hard to tell from the bits and pieces here. Sometimes they get thicker or thinner, but I think these are going to work. This one here might be a little tight. Oh, it feels about right. And that one might be a little loose, but everything seems to be turning. So I'm going to put it back together and see if I can test it without the CD player in place, because the CD player seems to be very much a separate kind of thing. So the next step will be to reassemble it, get rid of this stuff, which has made a huge mess. I mean, you can just look at all that. And then we'll take it from there in terms of whether we can get the CD player working. But I'm pretty confident I've got the belts on the right way. Now that I know how to get inside it, that seems less of a chore, although I would rather not have to do it a second time. So I will stop and reassemble, which involves putting in a lot of screws, and we'll see where that takes us. I've got it partially back together. Nothing's connected to it, so we won't be able to hear any audio. But oddly enough, the thing that I've had the most trouble with is trying to get the cassette door release mechanism to work. There's something I've not figured out about the geometry of that. But let's zoom in here a little bit and see if we've got anything moving when we put it on tape. Okay, so I've put in a tape. It's trying to play the tape. I hear everything moving. I can't see the tape moving because this doesn't have a window on it. and it appears to be playing the other side of the tape. Again, if I look in the side here, I don't know if this is going to be visible from there. Probably not. Let me swing the light down. And we can see right in there the belts moving. And the auto reverse solenoid, that's because I'm not holding the door, is making a funny noise. Okay, so let's swing it back around here. Let's try stop, rewind, that sounds okay. Fast forward. That's making funny noises, but again, it might be because I'm not holding the tape door closed properly. So I think the tape deck is likely working. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out the mysteries of the door closing mechanism. And then I'm going to go attach it to a pair of speakers and just see if I can, or at least one speaker, and see if there's actually sound coming out of the tape deck. I have got the eject mechanism working. I've hooked up one speaker. I'll try the other direction, the other channel afterwards, but let's try. So we've got little Dire Straits. Won't put that on too long. If you I don't know if you'll hear that, but noise reduction is going on and off, Dolby. Let's try the other side. So I've tried fast forward and reverse. As the only other question is trying the other side, but the cassette deck is working. It's fixed. So we've got one thing fixed. The next thing is going to be to have a quick look at this CD player, but I don't anticipate being able to do anything with that. Well, I've had a look at this mechanism here. I've opened it up. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go handheld for the moment. So there's not really anything I can do. I tried cleaning off the little worm gear that drives the head, drives the lens, I guess, across. I figured out the reason why the button was failing was this little plastic spring is all that it had, and of course as soon as I touched it, it broke off immediately. I think I can improvise something else, but I don't have anything that I can use at the moment for that purpose. So I'll just put something on it to hold it down for now. I will also clean the lens once again. And that's about all I can do. As I said, these CD players are a bit beyond me. What might be adjustable are these three potentiometers here. And I guess it would be possible to do something like replace the capacitors and whatnot. But since it works briefly and then fails, I don't know what those three potentiometers do. It wasn't entirely obvious from anything that I could see, so that's sort of all I've got at the moment. That's the extent of my total non-knowledge about CD players. So if anyone has any idea about what things like that might do, whether a little turn of one of those things might help, I don't know. But I mean, it doesn't really bother me if the CD player doesn't work, but I might pass this on to a family member who's going to end up trying to play CDs in it, and I prefer if the CD player works a little bit more reliably. Well, so what I'll do for the button is I'll get some sort of compressible spring and hot glue it more or less in place. I was wondering whether I had, like an old clicky pen spring around. I might, in which case I'll try that. But yeah, I think that could then go in place and that would solve the problem. You know, there's no point in making this more complicated than it needs to be. And that would be certainly a lot better than the spring that was on there. Well, and in any event, when I'm going to put this back together, I know I can get the CD player off very easily if I need to get at it and want to try fixing it again in the future. But the cassette player is working perfectly. The stereo is otherwise entirely functional. And my main goal was to try to fix the cassette deck anyhow. So oddly enough, my cleaning around in the CD player does seem to have got it working. Oh, that doesn't sound so good. Oh, I don't want to get too much of the police on here. The main thing I did was move around the lubricant a little bit that was all gummed up on the worm gear drive that moves the head around. So I think if I get this, find a replacement spring for the catch here of some sort, I think this is in business. I think it's fully working. If I'm right and it was just that, using it more will distribute the grease around a little bit better. I just think maybe it had been all gobbed up at one end of the worm gear, and that was preventing the, there's not much torque on the little motors that move these things, so that might have been the problem. Obviously, open it won't work, and I will pause for a moment and then I'll come back and we'll try the cassette mechanism once again. So just a brief follow-up on the CD player spring. Oh, I've got glue on my fingers and I still have, this is all from their belt, from the belts I took out. I have to scrub my hands down with something. But this is my solution, very kludgy, but this is my solution. Just a pen spring. I was going to say with buckling spring technology, but it isn't actually buckling. Fortunately, that's just sort of clipped over what's the ground plane here, and then I've used the handyman's secret weapon. Well, no, I haven't. I've used a whole bunch of hot glue. Easy enough to redo. I can come up with a better solution. I mean, you could glue a bracket right on the side, a little metal bracket with better glue, and then put on a better spring. In fact, you could glue it right onto here, or you could even attach the spring onto there. But that was a straight shot. I don't think it puts very little pressure on the board when it's not being pressed, and I suspect it will work just fine. So I'm really pleased with that for a 10-second repair. Well, okay, more like a 10-minute repair by the time you take this back off. But okay, now we've got the official CD, or cassette tape, I mean, of this channel. And let's see how we do. Well, we could put Dolby on. Not that that's necessary. Actually seems fairly good for WoW and Flutter. Let's try the other side. We have a cassette deck that works. We've got a CD player that seems to have fixed itself with by mucking around. Well, thanks very much for watching my little video, and as I said, I try to post these things weekly. This is a very nice little system. I've got the remote control for it. I might continue using it myself, but if it appears to be reliable, I will probably pass it on to a family member. These things come up now and again. This Kenwood seems to be very well made. I'm really quite impressed. It's fairly serviceable inside, and yeah, so I'm very happy with this result here. Well, thanks for watching,